job. I'm happy to, have lunch and be cordial, but I'm not here to hear about your kids. I'm not here to tell you about my kids. Yeah. I'm not here to talk about your football team.
I'm here to do my job.
So that really stuck with me. So I think I was trying to make the point when people think that they're working, they might think that they're working because they're at work, but they don't know what is a real worthy activity.
Welcome to the Your Peak Life podcast. Let's conquer the summit of life and reach the apex of our potential.
All right, so welcome to another episode of Your Peak Life podcast. Today we got Aaron G in the house. He's a mentor to us, a friend. I would say he's been over to my house. I've been over to his house, so that's what I consider a mentor friend. He's given me a lot of good jewels, a lot of good pieces of advice that I kind of use, and it kind of molded me into the person that I am, I would say, along with a couple of other people. But I wanted to start off by, welcoming you to the podcast, and also just to
Thanks for having me, guys.
hit us up.
Thanks for coming.
Pleasure to have you.
For those people who don't know who you are, quick brief summary of, how, you came in contact with us, your story with Mike, Eric, and why we're here today.
Is that the kickoff to me?
Sure.
Oh. Well, I think, number one, we all have a lot in common. We're all in the Navy.
It's true.
We all started in the Navy and ended up here and ended up in real estate. I think I'm just a little bit older than you guys. And, I don't know.
Well, where are you from?
I'm from Ohio. Joined the Navy when I was 18. Joined the submarine force. I didn't do very well in high school at all. Graduated with a 1.8 GPA.
Solid.
After I got kicked out of Catholic school my junior year.
just running amok.
And my parents were convinced I was still going to college. And I'm like, I ain't going to college.
And
That's
where
gonna be a
were
problem.
you living at?
In Canton, Akron, Canton area.
Gotcha.
But they were convinced I was going to go to Ohio State. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. They went on a cruise. I think it was like April or May. And I had a buddy. You guys probably had this buddy. But he joined the Navy and came back. And he was all buttoned up. He was a burnout before. When I knew him in high school, he was a year older. But he came back and he's like, hey, man, I can get like $500 if I can recruit somebody. Just come talk to the recruiter. But I was truly like impressed. I was like, holy crap, man, he really got his act together. So joined the Navy. Didn't know what I wanted to do. So they gave me like 10 jobs. They're like, do you want to be a diesel mechanic? Do you want to do this? I'm like, no. Like, do you want to be a cook? I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Like, you can get like a $2,000 bonus if you do this.
So enlisted CS.
Yeah.
So you were undesignated?
No. I took the MS.
This was before.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
So I had no idea what I signed up for. I got to boot camp and I'm like looking at, the chow hall and I'm like, oh my God, man, I'm going to be a MS. This is real. So I tried to get out of it. Couldn't, wasn't happening.
That's funny.
And after I got done with MS school, they're like, you're going to a carrier in Japan. And I'm like, I'm 18. I'm like, I hate this. I hate everything about it.
Yeah.
What have I done? So I ended up, they said, if you don't want to do that, you can go to submarine school. So I went to submarine school and ended up on the USS Tennessee. And I remember calling my dad, and I'm like, Dad, this is awful. He said, just do the best you can. Just do the best you can, and hopefully something good will come about it. So within 3 years, got command advanced a couple of times, got a scholarship, went through ROTC at the Ohio State University. So I ended up getting to Ohio State. But before that, I had to go through, you guys know NAPS and the Boost program.
Mm-hmm,
so they said, you're too dumb to get here. We think that you have some leadership potential, but you can't do algebra. You can't read and write very well. So you have to go to prep school for 1 year. So I did that for a year. And my wife was my girlfriend, fiance at the time. She went to school. By the time we got to Ohio State, she was starting her master's degree, and I was starting my first year as a midshipman. I think I was 23 at that time. Came here when I was 27 as an ensign, and got out. Studied finance and real estate at Ohio State. Read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Used student loans while I was in college to buy real estate. Bought a duplex, and I was like, I really want to do this. Sold cars. That's where I learned how to sell. I I may have told you this, Mike, but I think the best part of my education was listening to the Rush Limbaugh program and selling cars through college. I learned more doing that. I got street smart.
Damn, Rush Limbaugh was a thing, man.
Rush was the AM radio.
Fuck, I forgot about him.
But he was
been
kind
a
of like a
while.
motivational speaker. I mean, he was super political.
Yeah.
Love or hate his politics. He taught you how the world worked.
Well, a lot of what I just heard was, even though you weren't happy or content with what you were doing, you still performed at an extremely high level.
Yeah.
Because command
got to.
advancement in the Navy is not an easy thing. You did it multiple times. Then you went from being an enlisted sailor to an officer.
Mm-hmm.
You went from barely graduating high school to getting a degree at one of the most prestigious universities in the country. How'd you end up back at Ohio State? Was that part of the...
So, yeah, when you get a ROTC scholarship, the ROTC scholarship says, hey, if you get in any ROTC program in the country, I believe there's about 50 colleges. That's from Harvard to Cal to Ohio State, Michigan. It's your job to get into the college. And if you get accepted into the university and into the ROTC program, then the Navy will pay for your tuition. So my wife and I, she was graduating with a dietetics degree, like a clinical dietitian, and you can't get a job unless you get a master's. So she had to find a university that offered both a master's and I think they call them practicums, like clinicals. So you can work at a hospital. So we had 3 universities to choose from. It was Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. And I got into Oregon. She did not. We both got into Ohio State. We're both from Ohio. It was perfect. So it was, meant to be. That's
Yeah.
where I always thought I would
And
go.
you're saying we, so even you guys were serious.
We
You
were
guys
married.
making-
Yeah, we were
Oh, okay.
married. We were married. We got married. She was 21. I was 22.
Okay.
So when I was in that prep school, I was an E5, paid in Rhode Island. I think I got like 1,800 BAH. That was like 20 years ago, Eric. Do that math.
It's crazy now.
And, and I was living in the barracks. So it was financially pretty good. And we were Catholic. So put those in those numbers as well. So
What was it like studying at like a major college like that? Did you spend a lot of time on campus
yeah. I was involved with the unit, and different ROTS units at college are very different. If you go to Virginia Tech, it's like a Corps of Cadets. It's like being a mini military college. I think Ohio State is one of the most relaxed.
Okay.
So in hindsight, I didn't know this at the time, but they produce a lot of aviators for obvious reasons. It's a big university. They have an airport there. Of
course.
So when they're pumping out pilots during World War II and Vietnam, they have a heritage of aviation. And as you know, the aviator's a little bit more relaxed on the military bearing and all that stuff. So it was pretty casual to Ohio State.
true.
It was like, hey, come in. We're going to work out once a week. We're going to do drill once a week. Just get good grades, and we'll leave you alone. So it was very much like attrition if you couldn't manage yourself.
Right.
But we were encouraged to get different degrees. They push you to get an engineering degree. You got to take a year of calculus, a year of physics, and they'll always push you in the engineering realm because they want to, have options if you want to go nuke. But it was awesome. I was married. We were fraternity parents. My sophomore and junior year. Did I tell
That's
you this?
crazy. I did not know that.
No.
So I should say my wife was a fraternity parent. So she was a graduate student. She's just a couple years older than undergraduate students. So Ohio Wesleyan University is in Delaware, Ohio.
Yep.
It's about 40 minutes from Columbus. So a family friend of ours was there and said, hey, our house mom got fired, and we got in big trouble. Some of the guys got in trouble for like selling drugs or whatever. But this is a pretty good deal. You get room and board, and you get medical benefits. We're poor college kids. We're like, this sounds like a pretty good idea. So we were house mom and dad for like 2 years at Ohio Wesleyan University with the Fiji fraternity. So I'm literally like 24, 25, and it was a dry house. They couldn't drink, so it was pretty low key, but it was an interesting experience. So we got this picture. It's hilarious. And there's like 50 brothers, and then my wife, like 24, hot blonde, like is the mom. And then I remember my brother-in-law came to me and said, what do you think the bounty on her head is with the brothers? And I was like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah, you
He's like, what do you think they're saying? So,
Oh, that's good.
to my knowledge, that never happened, Edgar. So, thankfully. But it was cool. I'd go running with the guys. You know, if they want to go have a beer, we'd go down to the bar and have a pitcher.
Yeah.
And I was very much in a military mindset at that time. I was really focused. I struggle with academics and don't think I could have gotten through college without the Navy providing a very clear-cut goal, like you have to get through these wickets, get commissioned, get your job in this time frame. You know, without that structure, maybe for a lot of us, the Navy can find other talents that I think are hard to find for other people. One of the reasons I absolutely love the military. The military has a way of saying, hey, you didn't do well in high school, we don't care. You're doing a good job, that's going to be recognized, and we'll fill in the blanks, and we'll find that weakness, we'll fill it with a prep school, and we'll help you through it because we believe in you as a leader. So, yeah, the Navy changed the course of my life, man, and gave opportunity, confidence, all those things.
So that first phase, you hated the military or the Navy, and then now you come out as an ensign. Are you saying the same thing, or is this a whole different perspective coming out of college now? You're married.
Oh, I think once I had that little talk with my dad, he's like, "Look, man, you're gonna just do your best." And it's like, okay, I'm gonna do what I'm asked to do.
Right.
I'm gonna do it the best of my ability. I'm gonna pour my heart. I'm gonna give myself to the Navy. And once you do that and give yourself to your sailors, your leadership, you're gonna plug in to an ancient organization, truly. Like our Navy is founded from ancient times, so there is truth in that organization. So if you give yourself to it, you're going to get some reward, I think.
Depending on who you're working with, but yeah,
I had good leadership. So you know what? If we
when did you get out?
I got out 2005. I got out in 2005. Yeah. I do want to say one thing about leadership now that you mention it. So submarine community, you may know there's a gold crew and a blue crew to a
Vessel.
What's it called? A boomer, a Trident class submarine. So there's a crew that's on and a crew that's off, and vice versa. So when I was slated for orders, I got there and I was supposed to go to the blue crew, and they said, hey, they're out at sea, you're going to go to the gold crew. And I was like, cool. Got there, I had a great lieutenant, great chief, great first class, all the things. And they plugged me in, made me golden boy right away. And then I noticed the blue crew was totally screwed up. They had like a drunk chief, the lieutenant was absent. And I often reflect on that, Mike, to your point. So it's easy for me to say, like, it worked out. I did plug into good leadership. And I look and say, if I would have went to that blue crew, there's no way I would have got command advance. There's no way they would have supported me getting a scholarship.
Yep.
They weren't encouraging. They weren't helping me find every opportunity the Navy had because they weren't plugged in.
Right.
So that is a good point about the Navy. And I will say, you know, there's a part of us that we have to give, and it's up to our leadership to show us that. And that very important point, and you guys probably have it here, what's that first look at Iron Valley? What's that first look at Veterans United? What's that first look, that new sailor graduating A school, shows up to the ship, what's the first impression of that ship? And that's going to set their course, right, Senior Chief?
First 72. Right? First 72 hours
there you go.
Of stepping foot onto a command or checking into a command will be your perception of that command. First 72 hours. Right? You come on board. No one's there to greet you, right? Mm-hmm. You come on after hours, no one's there. You know, you have the assistant section leader come on, throw you in a rack. It's much different than if you come on board and your chief, your LPO, are there to greet you, there to take you to admin, to take you to your rack, show you where the mess hall is. It's a completely different experience. Your first 72 hours is going to really paint you and give you the trajectory you need. You're either going to go down this route or this route. And it's not always, right? It's never 100%, but that's a good rule of thumb. And you know, you mentioned boost, right? Mm-hmm. It brings me back to those times. I know a lot of my friends, Dapper Luke, that's how he became an officer. He went through boost. I remember, and as you're speaking, those. I'm going back to my first ship. I joined the Navy in '97. I could think back. Every person that got selected to be in a boost program is very far in life, because, like you said, these people had the leadership and the potential. They just didn't have the grades. They didn't have maybe even that family structure at home to even know to go and study or do those things. So the boost program, and I know they did away with that a long, long time ago.
I think they did, but it was it
Was a
stood
Seaman
for,
Admiral and all of that.
It was before.
State 21 came after that.
It came after
Boost
so,
turned
well,
into
Boost,
that.
Boost was for, it stands for Broadened Opportunity for Officer Selection and Training. So it's meant for people that are immigrants or coming from the inner city minority. And like, hey, you may not have a chance growing up in New York City with a good education, whatever, but you showed promise as a sailor. We're going to tighten you up on your math and reading and writing, and then you're going to take your SAT, ACT, and put you off to one of those 50 colleges. So that was the intent of Boost, was really to diversify the Navy, to bring, just like I said, more diversity to the officer ranks.
So you went to Ohio State, you got your degree, then you decided to get out.
Yeah.
Were you in Virginia when you decided to get out?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, my senior year, so I sold cars for a little bit. I ended up, I knew I was going to get a finance degree. Inside of finance, you can specialize in things like stocks, bonds, insurance. And then I specialized in real estate finance. And I was buying real estate. And then I started working for the broker that did my loans when I was in Columbus. And I was like, I love this. But I was working some like beat up shop. They gave me a desk. They're like, here, it's on the floor in a box. Go ahead and put it together. I'm like, thanks. And I just remember getting like my first check. Like I did a couple refinances, and I'm like, holy cow, man! Like I'm built for this. I know it. Like I have a degree. Like I can speak the language, and I have my sales experience. And in my opinion, what makes a great loan officer, you got to be a salesperson, and you got to know the trade. And we'll find people that are really knowledgeable in loans, and they can't communicate well. They can't sell. You'll find great salesmen that can sell you anything, but they screw their loans up 8 different ways. They can't close them on time. They make promises they can't keep because they don't have that technical aptitude. So when I was my senior year, I was like, I know. Like a lot of people fall into real estate or they fall into being a loan officer. It's like, I want to be, I need to be. I'm built for it. I know I can do it. So I didn't really want to take my commission. I was like, man, I want to go make some money. But took my commission and did a great job. I was battle stations OD, qualified everything. Never told anyone I want to get out of the military. And I was on watch as an ensign, and a little message came across and said, hey, commissioning groups 2002 to 2004 surface warfare officers were overmanned. We need to get rid of 86 of them. If you haven't taken your second tour orders, you can get out.
Oh, shit.
And I was just about to sign DESRON orders. I was like, you remember the DESRON? So you can do your second tour on DESRON staff if you're a hot runner. I was like, I'm going to do that. It'll cut down my sea time, and I don't plan on staying in. But I remember going to my captain. I'm like, hey, got this message. And he's like, what? Because, even though you're going to get out, I wasn't going around telling people.
No, you can't.
No.
No, it's gonna mess up your.
And no one needs to hear that. I'm here. I'm commissioned to do a job. You do your job.
Right.
So within like a month or two, I was on the streets, bro. So I thought I was going to be in the military for at least 2.5 more years. So I got out literally as I was putting on JG.
Wow, that's
So-
fast.
Yeah.
That's fast.
Yeah. Well, then they came
Yeah,
out.
they're like, we made too many. And then they come back and what? Oh, we need
Well,
none.
then they said
They're
they were
in
like,
that right now.
I was close to being a Marine in ROTC, like the MESEP program, which is like the Seaman Admiral. So I was a little bit older. I'm hanging out with E5s and E6 active duty Marines. So hanging out with them. You should be a Marine. So I gave it a pretty good look, and I'm like, I don't want to be like 27. I'm going back to the Navy. I'm going to get out. But they tried to push and said, hey, you're like a force protection officer. Like we put on the Marine uniform and go to the basic. I'm like, no, I'm going to go be a loan officer. So that was 2005, and that's how I started off here.
2005.
Yeah.
Leave the Navy. What's next? Did
So-
you have a plan? You said 2 months later you were out.
So I didn't have a plan, but the guy that did my loan, Jerry Quick, you guys may have heard his name. He's been in the business for 20 some years here in town. He was my loan officer at First Horizon Home Loans. So I kept in touch with him and asked him, tons of questions when he was doing my loan. And it's like, man, I want to, like, what do you guys got going on down there? What kind of volume are you doing? What's the temperature of the market? Blah, blah, blah. So I maintained a relationship with him, talked to him, I don't know, every few months, and said when I got out, I wanted to keep that iron hot. He was like my only contact. And when it was time for me to get out, he said, I'd love to help you. And, the beauty of mentorship, and he didn't have to do it. He wasn't going to really make any money off me, but he took me under his wing in an office about this size, bought me a desk, and said, I'm going to help you. And just let me shadow him for 3-4 months, gave me his scraps. I started closing loans, learning how to do loans the right way. They were a good shop, good group of guys, professional, and that was really important, Mike. Very important, kind of that first 72 hours, that first few weeks that you're in a real estate shop. I'm sure you guys see it. You guys probably inherit some broken people from broken leadership it's kind of hard to undo. And it's almost like, do I want to do that, or I just want to take somebody who is motivated, smart, clear on what they want to do, and doesn't have any real estate experience, because I don't want them tainted. But fortunately, I had a good look there too, and had a good mentor that really helped me out. So that's how I got started there.
When did you end up at Union Mortgage? Because that's when we met.
So I was at First Horizon. First Horizon imploded during the credit crash. Yep, 08. We got inherited by MetLife. That didn't work out. And Union, many people don't know, it's kind of like the town bank of Richmond. It's the biggest community bank in the state. But they had a really broken mortgage division. So there were a handful of us that were top producers, managers, and kind of found safe harbor from like 2009 to 2013 is when I ended up leaving. And we had a great structure. So we had what was called a P&L model, a profit and loss, which is pretty rare. But I got to see how loans were sold, how they're underwritten, how they're priced, how all the expenses in the branch works, which can be pretty cryptic in our business because there's a lot of different layers of publicly traded companies that aren't going to give you that opportunity. But Union gave me personally a great look behind the curtain. Already had a finance degree, already had a book of business. That was really important in understanding how to run a mortgage company from a financial perspective. Where's the money going?
Aaron did my first refi. That's how I met him.
Gotcha. Nice. Now,
after I met his business partner, because I was working on one of the flips that he owned.
Sir Carlos Rogers?
Yeah, that's correct.
Carl Dovis Rogers the fourth? Yeah.
Which is also like a cool story because, Juan, my business partner, does a lot of business with Carl.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like we talked about on an earlier podcast how we have our circles, and those circles have extended and helped build other circles.
Yeah.
John Montelegro, Marie Montelegro, Juan Aponte, and they're all now connecting with Carl as well.
Yeah.
And then you have a relationship came heavily through Mike and Eric's relationship through you. And it just builds upon, and our network is just grown.
Yeah.
And I think we've all used each other to kind of, gain that information. And just like you said, people offer mentorship when they don't really need, there's no financial gain to it.
Yeah. You never know who you're going to, the reason I have this opinion, or I was able to formulate the opinion that you have to be good to every person. And if they ask you for something, give it to them. As long as it's not, hey, can I have $1,000? Right? But if they ask you for something,
we
you're
get
able
plenty
to
of
give,
those too.
We should do that as stewards of our business. As if you want to call yourself a Christian man or whatever, you should give people what they ask for. But what I first saw when I got in the business, I'm like, all right, I'm here, and I would try to talk to older people that were established in the business, and they would treat me like crap, man. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to remember that because I'm going somewhere, and I will remember that you showed me your true colors when I was in need of whatever, new to the industry, but you had an opportunity to help me, and you treated me like shit. So, not that I have always done that, but I try to be very cognizant when someone that's new to the business, when someone is looking up to you and saying, hey, can you give me a nugget? Like, give it to them.
Yeah.
You'll never know. You never know who they're going to become. And you never want to be that guy where they look at you and say, oh, Aaron was too busy for me. Or he was too good for me. So that I saw that immediately when I got in real estate. And to give it some perspective, when I got in, this was it would have been like somebody coming in 21. Just everything was nuts. Everyone's making a ton of money. And it crashed super hard. One of the reasons I got into real estate and into the mortgage game, I love that piece, but I really wanted to buy property. I wanted to do a lot of the things that I'm doing now, developing, being a commercial landlord. And I did plot like a 20-year plan like 25 years ago in getting there. So one thing I have always done with Carl, we did work together a little bit as, you know, the real estate agent, loan officer. But when the market popped and the numbers started working in 2009, so I would size up property in 2005. I was like, I can't buy a rental property. I could put 40% down and it doesn't even cash flow. That doesn't make sense. So the way I look at things, having been in the business 18 years, there's a time where you focus on the retail side and sell as a salesperson. And there's a point where you can supplement your income on the other side of real estate. And that's exactly what Carl and I did, is when 2009, 2010 happened, we're like, okay, now prices make sense. How do we buy, flip? How do we buy and hold? How do we there's an entry point in getting into the investment side of real estate, stepping out of that retail sales side of things. What I love about it is we have parallel business, but we always want to be positioned for that. So one of the things I'm doing now and have been doing for the last couple of years is waiting for...
We're heading there, right?
I'm keeping the powder dry, getting my lines of credit ready to come in when opportunity presents itself. So this year, I'm planning on not making, as much money as we had in the past with the mortgage game, but how am I going to supplement my income with that circle of people that we talk about, that other side of business that has to do with non-retail. The beautiful thing is it's a lot of the same players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
It's funny.
I don't have any projects right now, though.
No, it's funny you mentioned that. I felt just like you when I first started in real estate, because the first brokerage I joined was exactly that. They weren't giving me the time of day. Yeah. I was yearning for some knowledge. Like, I think now with some experience and people come at you and ask you those questions, give them the time. Mm-hmm. That's what I like when I met these guys, because it was just like, and they say now, like, the biggest secret is we have no secrets. And it goes to that point. It's like, if you want to schedule and sit down and talk about building your future or mapping out a business plan, we'll do that. Mm-hmm. I'll give you the nuggets and where I feel you should start, where I should have started. I'll tell you all my mistakes.
Yeah.
Things that I learned now, that now in retrospect, it's like, damn, I should have done that first. Mm-hmm. But there was nobody around to mentor me or help me or was even willing to give me that.
Or you
that knowledge.
Or you didn't even know the questions to ask, right? I mean, when you're in a situation, you start off real estate, you're in a situation, you don't even really know what to ask, let alone what questions, what guidance. I mean,
one of the reasons I have a relationship, you guys know David Board, is he was the only agent that gave me the time of day. Just like, hey, man, I met this guy, wants to sell his house. What do I do?
Yeah.
Because you guys know, once you go through real estate course, they don't really teach you how to write a listing
how to do a deal.
Yeah. And he was one of the only ones to sit down and talk to me and whatever. But I'm not far removed from that for year one.
Yeah. And
I totally get all these agents that come in or asking for some advice on even setting their business up properly, right? And then you have that breakout year, and it's like, hey, IRS, I know I owe you $60,000. I don't got it right now.
And that's one of the things. Like, make sure you're not spending all your money, bud. Make sure you're saving some for the tax.
Yeah, and you know it. Like, I mean, like I said, I recall this because you're going to owe this money, but you're not setting up for it. You're not structured. You're not.
Well, it's the duality of being self-employed. You have all this freedom, but you're your own boss. You have enough rope to hang yourself with in many instances. But So did someone come and point that out to you and say, "Hey, make sure"?
Actually, it was kind of like on my own, little by little. I was like, okay, I need to do this. I need to address this. How do I get better? Since getting here, obviously, with like talking to Mike, it's the trust, the trust funds, the whole life policies, the S corps, and all of that. Because at the time, it was just like, okay, LLC save so much money for the IRS. Very basic. Now I feel a lot better, and I'm still getting better. 2024 is my year where it's like setting up for. We see it; it's coming, right? It's going to be that entry level point that you were talking about, where it's like there's going to be a lot of opportunity, and you better be ready, or else you got to wait 10 more years.
Yeah.
Wait for another cycle or whatever.
It's important to know those things could be on the horizon, and that's what other people have done. And yeah, and I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but when we look at being self-employed, you got to earn your stripes. You got to go and produce for a few years. Then the hope is you're going to be some sort of leader, and then at some point, hopefully, you're working through other people. And the way to work through other people, and that's not an abusive thing. When I say work through other people, you guys are in many ways working through other people. In many ways, I'm working through other people, but they'll only allow you to work through them if they trust you and they're bringing true value to it. So one of the best things you can do is the ideas that we're talking about in building trust is when someone's coming into the business, like, I'm open and I'm not trying to take advantage of you. I'm going to help you. And the beautiful thing about capitalism, when you're helping other people make money, it tends to enrich you. The system is rigged to help you if you're playing by the rules, and you're acting in your own self-interest, and it lifts up the entire group. It's a beautiful thing about our country.
Yeah, I was.
I would agree.
Somebody brought that up. It was like, don't treat the IRS as your enemy. Treat them as your partner.
How do you mean? Haven't heard that one.
Yeah,
Eric's like, nah, fam.
No,
Well,
but
it just means you're making money.
you're making money, and
Yeah.
there's all these rules to help you as a businessman.
Yeah.
Correct. Like, you got to capitalize on those. So, for example,
Stop fighting it.
Yeah.
Give in.
There's
Just
nothing I can do about the IRS. Absolutely none. All I can do is incorporate it and account for it in the money I make. That's it. It's it is your partner. Without them, you're
It's
done.
part of your
If
business.
you're not, reporting your income, right? Then you're never going to build wealth because you're never going to be able to attain anything, right? You can't, if you're not filing your taxes online, if you're not claiming income, you're not paying taxes, you're not making money.
Yeah.
If you're not making money, you can't buy more assets. You can't build companies.
Yeah.
It's a partner. It's a
I'm with you on that.
necessary evil.
So I maybe another way to put it is, instead of fighting the IRS and not doing your taxes and saying, I don't want to play this game, or I'm going to put it off, you're not going to present yourself well in the system in which we operate, right? So I like that.
well, with you, and I don't know if you want to speak on this, but you've got your hands in a lot of stuff as
Yeah.
you grow.
Yep.
Who was the person
So
giving you that advice?
So
on how to
very,
establish
very
yourself?
fortunately, my brother-in-law, who's a bit older than me, who's been the closest thing I've had to a big brother, came from similar background as me. I would say an upper middle class family. We weren't wealthy by any means, but didn't go without. But came from hardworking families, and he stepped out into entrepreneurial work right out of college. And I always tell him he's my mentor. He doesn't necessarily, he does now. We're business partners in many ways, so he'll give me advice. He's like, what am I doing to mentor you? I'm like, you're just an example. You're a good example of somebody who is out on his own, taking risks, and I'm watching you do it, and I'm watching you become very successful doing it. And that alone gives me inspiration and hope that I can do it. So I don't know, you can read books, and you can watch memes online and listen to podcasts, and like, wow. But until it's like right in front of you,
Yeah.
or somebody is, you're observing them succeed, and you're watching their disciplines, and like, I think I can do the same thing. I know I can do the same thing. But the hardest thing for any of us that are in this type of business, we all had to make this decision, is, all right, I'm not getting a paycheck for sure. I'm betting on myself. And that stock for me was super high. I remember going to my XO. He's like, you shouldn't be doing it. Like, you're a good sailor and you're going somewhere. I'm like, I hear you. And he's like, what are you going to do? I was like, I'm going to sell loans and real estate. He's like, you're not going to make the money you made as an ensign. And I was like, I promise you.
Oh, man.
I promise you I'm going to make at least $100,000 my first year. And I remember the first year, I think I made like $220. And I think I sent my W-2 to him. We're still friends.
Because Aaron's a savage, if you don't know.
Well, I mean, it was
that's a good segue for your question.
It was, like, why are you going to tell me that, man? And it speaks to that institutionalized mentality that not only this sailor, and he's a solid guy, Naval Academy, but that was his worldview. His worldview could be like, see some guy at a 7-Eleven in a big truck that says Joe's Lawn Care. That's the civilian side. I don't know. But to answer your question, that mentor, that was my brother-in-law, somebody that was close to me that now I rely heavily on, and there's not a lot of people you can go to.
Right.
And I'm sure each of you guys sitting here, you're not running your family like, oh, hey, Dad, I got a tax problem. Like there's certain things I can't go to my dad for anymore, and of course there's certain things I certainly can. But having somebody, I think, personally in your life that is tangible and accessible is super important. And maybe, the conversations that we're having now and the ideas that we're throwing out, we want to be that person to a lot of people, but we can't go all in all the time with any person. I think I got 3 emails of people wanting something from me today that I'll respond to them later, but I don't even know them.
Right.
I'll give them something, but
yeah, you got to prove.
So
you got to prove. Yeah. Mike always says that, like, if something about pouring into their water, like if they're showing up.
Oh yeah, I'll pour into your cup if you're gonna.
If you're drinking,
not just drinking, but you got to clean the cup and refill it too.
okay,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
ain't gonna do it for you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch you work hard for 2 days and then you act like we owe you something.
Right.
No, all the people that I've molded or groomed, like there was months where we were watching them like, okay, they got the hunger. You know what I'm saying? You watch them suffer in silence, but they're doing the work, right? And then eventually, actually, my most recent success story in an agent really is because Eric went and talked shit to him. He's like, hey man, Mike basically has nobody that he's working with right now. Why don't you go talk to him? And here we are, 20-something deals later. The kid's killing it. So, but I wouldn't have entertained that if I didn't see him out on the floor grinding every day for
Driving
months,
an hour into work.
Because my access level has to be higher. I can't give 250 people the same attention because 195 of those people are not going to put in the work.
Well, and you get the same people that'll come in, motivated, like, hey, what's your story? What do you suggest I do? Do this, and then I'll follow up with them a week or 2 later. Did you do that?
Nope.
No. All right, don't ask me for advice anymore.
Right.
Because there's plenty of people that want to be what I call real estate actors, or
Oh shit!
they're actors, man.
We did
All right,
that.
Eric's gonna hop in here with Aaron. I feel like this is a hot button.
Well,
If you watch Eric's video content,
You haven't seen it, have you? Right?
I'm kind of off social media, but we're probably observing the same thing, and it's people that want to. That unfortunately, I think we all seek identity in some way, and people. Today's day and age, it's hard to find it. I look at the guy that's 50 and decides to get a Harley and grow his hair long, and get a tattoo. You're like, okay, you found some identity. You're in a motorcycle gang now, or whatever. But there's people I think that are attracted to the business. Am I off on that?
No, I love it.
I love
Yeah.
your jokes. That
we all know.
passive aggressive.
We all know.
Is there somebody in this room that got a Harley and a tattoo?
I mean, I got Harley
Okay.
tattoos. Yeah.
Okay.
But he
We all
didn't do
got
it
tattoos.
as like a midlife crisis. It's always
Yeah.
been a thing.
Yeah. But you know what I'm talking about. People they seek identity, and sometimes
Yeah.
we'll find those identity seekers in the game, and they'll want to show up to the events and hang out with other agents and go to events and talk about all the things, but you unfortunately see them just acting like you're not doing what needs to be done.
Yes, we
and
see that.
and it gives agents, loan officers, and people in our business a bad name, frankly.
Yeah, it's a facade. Like, I got the most websites in real estate, but you don't do shit. You got people that.
You got to look at it too. Like you have HGTV and all these other shows selling
Yeah.
Sunset.
Real estate
So
porn.
you have all these people coming into the industry thinking, "Oh, it's gonna be just like that.
Dress really
I'm gonna
nice.
dress really nice. I'm
Yeah.
always be pretty, wearing the
And then I'm
nicest
selling
clothes,
everything.
and I'm selling multi-million-dollar houses."
My daughter, when she came, my daughter got licensed in May, right? And when she came to me, she's like, Bob, I want to be like all these realtors, right? She's pulling up all these, and I said, I'm going to show you something. Every person she
Pulled up a picture of Edgar. No.
right?
You showed them the numbers?
I showed her the numbers behind them. She's like,
What?
no, that's
They're
not,
actors,
Yeah,
sweetheart.
that's not the same person. I said, no, it is. I said, just because your social media presence is as if you're producing, you're really not. The numbers, your numbers don't lie. So what kind of agent do you want to be? Do you want to be somebody who focuses on social media, dressing nice, putting out a lot of content, or are you going to be an agent that's going to close deals?
Yeah.
The best agent is a combination of the two, correct, right?
Gotta present
But
yourself well, be-
I would much rather do numbers and no social media than heavy social media and no numbers.
Well, that's that fake it till you make it, right? Like you have the society thinking if I post a lot of content, I'm doing really well. And it does fool some people, but your work ethic has to match that image. If you're just showing it off.
Well, I'll take that a step further and say, like, in their minds, they may think that they're working. Like, look,
Like
I'm
busy work.
posting content. I'm posting content. I'm doing what it takes. And that could be a failure of leadership.
Right.
That could be a lack of understanding of what salesmanship truly is.
Absolutely.
And I know you gave me like a little question you're going to ask me, but I used to study Brian Tracy, who's kind of the Grant Cardone of the 80s and 90s. So my grandfather, in the 70s, he and his brothers started a facsimile and copier business. They did really well, right when it was emerging. And they were street salesmen, man, like,
Door to door.
Yeah.
oh, man,
That's a whole different era.
What technology?
Yeah, like the Kirby vacuum type
Oh,
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. Like, was it Microsoft sales? Not Microsoft. It was IBM salesmen. Those guys they went to school for a while, learned the trade of salesmanship. So my grandfather had a library of self-help.
Nice.
And it was Nightingale Conant. You may recognize that purveyor of information, but that was like all the Tony Robbins discs. And at the time it were cassette tapes. I'm that old. We're that old. Yeah. But
I think everybody in this room.
We-
like
yeah.
this.
the idea of a good
Facts.
salesman, you're on the road. So Brian Tracy always say, like, you have so much content. Instead of listening to the radio, and we didn't have cell phones back then, you pop in sales training. So I used to listen to it, going to see my now wife. If I had a 72-hour Liberty, I'd drive like 14 hours to go see her, and I just ripped through Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins. And one of the things I gathered from it was, Brian Tracy, you're a salesman. What is a good activity during the day? So he'd go through and be like, hey, I'm going to get to the office and get some coffee. I'm ask Edgar how he's doing. And then I'm going to get another cup of coffee and ask Mike about what he's doing. I got a few emails to do, but I'm going to check in with Eric first. And then I got to ask Edgar what he's doing and who his football team is for the weekend. And now it's time for lunch. Hey, guys, let's go to lunch. And I'm going to get ready. And at some point, I'm going to do a sales call.
Right.
So that really stuck with me. And when I got to First Horizon, I said it was a good group. When I got there, they welcomed me. They showed me where the bathroom is. They gave me the 72-hour, this is your family. We're going to take care of you. After about 6 or 7 months, I noticed, like, every day, like, God would come in and talk to me for 5 minutes. And there would be 10 people that talked to me for 5 minutes. And I'm like, that's an hour wasted. Go to lunch with all these guys. I'm like, running the math, I'm at work, quote unquote, for 50 hours. I can cut 2 hours a day by not talking to these jokers anymore. I love them,
Right.
but it's not helping me. So
That's
they started
Eric.
coming to my door, and I'd be like, get out. Like, oh, what's up? And the boss came in. It's like, hey, everyone thinks that you're being kind of an asshole. I was like, I'm not being an asshole, but I'm here to work, and they're not helping me work. So I'd appreciate it if you'd shut my door and leave me alone, because you're not making me any money. And I'm here to make money. It's my job. I'm happy to, have lunch and be cordial, but I'm not here to hear about your kids. I'm not here to tell you about my kids.
Yeah.
I'm not here to talk about your
I'm
football
here
team.
to do my job.
So that really stuck with me. So I think I was trying to make the point, when people think that they're working, they might think that they're working because they're at work,
Right.
but they don't know what is a real worthy activity
Right.
that's going to lead
I call
to
them
a sale.
money-making activities.
There you go.
Well,
Green
right.
activity. There's a
Absolutely.
green and a red.
Well, you definitely have busy work and then productive work.
Yeah.
Right.
What are you going to lean towards? At the
Right.
end of the day?
Yeah. So I had said to Edwin at some point, I was like, I don't, what did I say? I don't talk to anybody that
I don't
isn't-
spend my time with people I don't make money with.
Yeah. And what I and that can come off as kind of curt. That can come off kind of, like I'm only hanging out with people that are going to enrich me, and that's not what I mean by it. And an example is I have a couple new loan officers that came out of the military. And I'm like, look, I know you guys have done some cool stuff in the military, and now we're over at the sales job. Here's how you can make it fun. Because you don't want to talk to everybody. Find some people that you actually want to hang out with. What activities do you like to do? Do you like to play golf? Do you like to hunt? Do you like to fish? Do you like to boat? Do you like to dive? Like to surf? So whatever those activities are, go find people in real estate who are doing the same things.
Yep.
And then you can have a true friend that you can do cool things with, but this is not going to be aimless socializing. And that's the spirit of it. Like, what is aimless socializing? Like, what am I doing here? To me, this isn't aimless. I'm doing a podcast with people I do business with, and
Right.
hopefully we enrich each other, and this is in my field. I can call this work today, and I'm having fun doing it. But that's the point. If we're going to win the war of business, meaning staying in and not becoming deficient in some way, emotionally, chemically, burnout, bad relationships, we have to have fun at work. So my point in saying that, and my mindset, the spirit of me saying that, is I'm only spending time with people that I'm making money with. I have created my social and my sphere, the people that I truly love and want to hang out with, I'm also in business with, because that's my life. I'm a businessman. And, if I was a doctor or an attorney or doing something else, I would be doing other things. But what's my job as a businessman? What's my purpose? Number one, it's to serve my family, serve myself, and hopefully serve all the people that are inside of that sphere. And I want to do it in as fun of a way as we can.
I had a question. I know I emailed everybody early this morning. I was a little behind, but I figure now that Aaron has been through some prep education from the Navy, he's probably prepared to answer some of these questions. But I just want to know, you met me at a time where I was killing the Navy.
Yeah.
I had just started in real estate. My first marriage at that time was actually going quite well. I refinanced my house with you. I had just remodeled it. But I knew I wanted to be in real estate, but I just couldn't find a way to just walk away from the Navy. And a lot of that had to do with my old relationship and stuff. But you always said, you're really fucking good at this. You should just get out of the Navy. Like, you told me that before I ever really even thought about it. Why? Because I know you don't say that to everybody.
No, but I think if you're able to excel in the Navy, like there's some motivation to you, and if you're able to advance, like you're doing something right. If you put that same amount of activity in real estate, you're going to be good. So why did I say that to you? It was probably because I knew where you came from. I knew where your background is, like your upbringing. And I wanted to be a person like, Mike, I know that this is an unknown, uncharted territory. You join the Navy and say, all right, you're starting off as an E1. Here's how you can become a chief petty officer and a master chief. Here's how you can become a lieutenant. Whatever. It's very clear. And you have to make a decision. Number one, am I willing to put in the work to do it? And if I am in the time, it'll probably happen. And that's not the case in the business world. So I was probably just trying to give you a nudge, like, look, man, it ain't so bad over here. Yeah. And if you're thinking about it, you'd probably be happy over here. At the same time, I mean, I think there's very few people that stay in the Navy for a long time because they truly love it. I wish that I had a job in the Navy. I was like, I love this. And I'm finding complete fulfillment, and I was meant to do this job. And I didn't find it. I'm happy I did it. Grateful that I served my country. Grateful of everything I learned from our Navy. Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, I've done my time, and I need to move on. So I sense that with you too, and I sense you were always frustrated too, man. You're always pissed off.
Yeah, I wasn't happy.
No,
yeah,
and it's like
true.
You're talking to Mike. It's like, damn, Mike's like a bull in a
no,
side
man,
of a rodeo, like kicking.
When I
let him out.
When I
Mike,
first started in real
get out.
estate, dude, like you talk about follow-up game, I was annoying. Aaron used to have to put me in my place. Like, listen, bro, this shit doesn't move like that. You know what I mean? Like, because I was like, where's this? Where's that? Why isn't that done? Why are you talking to me? Who's this? Like, it was just
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Over the top.
Obviously, you know this. What Iron Valley's like, you know, with tons of veterans, and it's like we do great because we're on top.
Yeah.
Like we get a task, like we get it done.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, you gotta like throttle that down in the civilian world.
It's funny because Aaron saw the brand new agent Mike, and now he sees like the seasoned
Yeah.
principal broker Mike, right? And
Yeah.
it's just like two completely different worlds.
Mike said this to me one day. He was like, "People fucking think I'm just walking around my house screaming at my kids like all day or something." Like,
yeah, man, because people are like, oh,
Yes.
it's always
Well, I think there's a decompression period. I went through it. It took me about 2 years. Like I never really worked with women, and I remember when I was at First Horizon, like I was a buttoned up, you know, junior officer, like on top of my stuff, running 3 divisions and standing watch, and you know, I was I was very engaged. So when I would have a file, and I would look at my processor and ask for the updates, and they were like, "Why are you looking at me like that? You're making me feel like I'm not doing my job." I'm like, "You're not." And I wasn't a manager. And that's when I realized I was like, I have to hire my own people.
we call
because-
that PTSD.
Yeah, well, and I would make people cry all the time, and
oh shit.
just
man.
and it wasn't because I would yell at them. It would just be like that level of intensity.
Yeah.
But then you just realize you're like, look, this isn't watch standing. This isn't, you know, advancement. It's just there's no real emergencies in residential real estate. But I think it's important, Mike, that you were at that op tempo or that level of attention to detail, that level of passion on something that'll never really leave, but you'll just kind of learn how to deal with it in a different way. So one of the things, you guys know, Adora in the office, we've been working together for years, and I was really hard with some of our older employees for a long time. And then now they see me, hey, Aaron's just cool with everything. And Adora is kind of like, I'm keeping him that way. Like, you don't want to see him
This was the
get
years of
upset.
therapy.
Yeah.
But I would say, Mike, I mean, I like what we're alluding to is like, hey, you saw young Mike that was killing it in the Navy, and then watching your transition. Yeah, man. I mean, I loved seeing where you are now, like peaceful and probably that comes from fulfillment, right? So that's a gift to be fulfilled and be able to kind of tone it down. It doesn't mean that passion isn't there anymore. It just means that you've learned to use it in the right way, right? Would you say that? Like you're no less passionate that you were. You're
I think I'm better at knowing when to just shut the fuck up. Like some shit is just not
It's
worth
getting better.
yeah.
your breath. You know what I mean? Like you can't expect everybody to think like you or act like you. And I kind of had to turn that knob down.
Yeah.
Like
I think that comes with age and a level of understanding
It does.
absolutely.
experiences that you're doing.
And just some of the things I went through, man, were very humbling,
Yeah.
to say the least. Like, you know,
And being open to seeing what other people can bring. You guys are very different personalities, different backgrounds that I'm sure complement and strengthen each other in many different ways. And that's a super important thing
absolutely.
to build a team around.
We have a very diverse leadership group, whether that be in style or how we speak or how we act or the way we do things. We're all just a little different,
Yeah.
you know, but we're
Yes.
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And our strengths, right? Our strengths, not shrimps, right?
Your what? Your shrimps?
Yeah.
What the
Our
fuck?
strengths are
There's a diversity right there.
That's an inside joke.
Puerto
It's,
Rican strengths?
strengths. Our strengths. We are all strong at different parts of the business.
Is this a portmanteau where you took 2 words like lunch and brunch and put them together? Or lunch and breakfast snack to brunch?
This goes,
He said we're all strong.
yeah, because y'all got, that's my
It
accent.
sounded like shrimps.
It did.
we-
It did,
That's
exactly.
what that's what the joke
What's
is.
happening?
So the video came out. He's talking, and you know the captions come across the video content, right? He's saying strengths,
Oh, okay.
and
But
the
it's
caption
definitely
is saying shrimps.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my accent. It's all good, though.
Yo,
But we all have different strengths, and I think that's what makes us,
man.
you know, it's hard when I tell people it's hard. You're not gonna compete with 5 people that are all strong at different things and all operating at 100 at different times. Because that's the benefit. If I'm off, I was sick. When I was sick, we just talked about it. We were sick. I was in my bed for like 4 days, like legit. It doesn't happen often, but guess what happened? Nothing was missed.
Nothing missed.
Nothing was missed.
Not a thing. If anything, we're all so competitive. Like, we take it as a challenge. Like the day you handled that thing and we were out of town, I was like, this is him saying, hey, motherfuckers, in case you didn't know, I'm built for this. Like, we all take that as a personal thing. Like, oh, you need that? I got it. Don't worry about it.
Well, like last week, it was me, you, and Andy were all sick. So 4 of us were out. I had strep. You had
The vid.
You had who knows what it was.
And then the monster rises like the
Right?
phoenix from the ashes.
So
Mike comes off the bench.
Well, it was.
And then they get better, and I'm back into recluse.
I can't speak for everybody, but I was like frustrated because
Yeah.
you're just sitting at home and you're like,
This is so, I can't do shit.
I can't come in because I will get somebody sick.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we all work so hard that we'd be willing, if we were dying, to come in here and run our company.
We would, and
like-
that's we would.
That's
but
not
we
sustainable.
can't.
I mean, one mark of great leadership is, if the key man is out, and I've dealt with that. I have other companies that we purchased, and we had what are referred to as key men. Like, he is the reason anything happens or doesn't happen, and that's a great strength. He is so knowledgeable, motivated, etc. But it's a terrible weakness.
Yep.
Right.
And that's a problem that we run into, and why I don't think real estate companies are able to grow sometimes is because we get in that mindset that if it's to be, it's up to me, and I'm not going to release any power, responsibility, trust. And the speed of trust, I think, is what you guys have.
So
like,
I think
we trust each other.
That's the specialty the Navy gave me, personally. If I could look back and say my leadership traits as far as knowing delegation and who's fucking good at what, and being willing to let go enough to say, they got it.
Yeah.
And you'll check on the results for a while, right? But then eventually you're like, no, they really got it. Like, when these guys do the money now, I don't go look. Because if it's fucked up, Lori's going to tell them anyways. But we got to a point where they became sufficient in what they were doing.
Yeah.
And now that frees me up to go to the next level, like board of directors at the association, to see what kind of impact we can have as a company. Because now when the money sheet comes through, he's got it. If he's sick, he's got it. Like, when we were out of town and Eric handled this just clusterfuck, we deal with all kinds of shit, dude. Doing 160 deals a month, most months, like people getting sued and people backing out of deals. And especially with sticker shock of the interest rates and stuff, people were backing out all the time.
Thanks for not bringing that up during the podcast.
Well, it's fine. I mean, the rates stabilized, and you gave some great training the other day on that.
Well, I want to tell you one thing that when I was transitioning out of the Navy, I was working with like a little coach, and they were, kind of like a skill bridge or whatever.
Yeah.
But they were like teaching you how to interview for a civilian job. And one of the best interview questions that I had to prepare myself for is like, okay, you were a manager. When do you micromanage? Or are you a micromanager? So the question of micromanagement comes up. And the answer that was like so simple, but something so important, and I want to share it with you guys, it's like, when I need to be. When are you a micromanager, Mike? When I need to be. Like, so you want to find the guy that's a lunatic, that's putting it, screwing everybody up by not finding their natural abilities, not extending trust, not extending power to them. But we have to have that threshold, like, okay, you're fucked up, and I'm taking over, or we're going to micromanage you. So when are you a micromanager? When I have to be.
I think I've pretty much mastered that as well. Like, I think I know now versus 5 to 10 years ago. Now I know when it's important to press the button,
Yeah.
We do it with some of the employees sometimes, or even to each other as partners sometimes to get things done. But
Don't you think that a lot of reasons people micromanage are for perfectly selfish reasons or insecurities? Like, I had to go through that when I was delegating some of the things at Veterans United, and I would delegate them out, and then I had that feeling of insecurity. I had that feeling of like not being valuable anymore when things that I was handling, they're going to other people for, and they're just passing my desk. And I had to have that moment of reflection. I was like, you got a choice. You can be like, no, I'm the man. Like, I want to cut on this thing, or ask me my opinion. And I said, no. This is amazing. This is what's going to separate the men from the boys.
Yes.
You know? And that's where you say, okay, now we can grow, because I now have fully relinquished this task with full trust and accountability to somebody else that is capable of doing it, so I can do something else. And if I do get sick, the ship ain't going to sink, you know?
No, keeps going.
Place isn't going to blow up.
Absolutely.
But I find a lot of insecure guys can't make that, they can't remove themselves from always wanting to get in the mix, and they're limiting growth because of it. So Mike, gold star.
Thanks,
I
man.
struggle with that still.
So it is a struggle.
I'ma
Like,
tell you
it-
that.
Yo, isn't it crazy
hits
though?
you.
Like, because
Still.
now we're at a point where I'll look at him and be like, bro, why are you worried about that? Let it go. Like, it's not.
Oh
but
my
it's-
God,
but
this
it's-
motherfucker showed up. That was the funniest shit to me, because we all know Mike sometimes when he spazzes out or whatever, and for legitimate reasons, right? But there was an issue, agent, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that day we took his son and my kids to the movies. You know, we left kind of like middle of the day. They were off. He comes back to pick up his kid, and he already knows the situation. I'm walking up to the car, and he already knows. He's like, just let it go. I was like, I just laughed, because I was like, out of all people, this guy
I might
telling
even
me
sing it
just
to
let
you,
it
bro.
go. Just let it go. I was like,
I struggle with that.
Well,
and
yeah,
I think part of it is I did 23 years in the Navy, and I just got out a little while ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we you know, it's less than 3 years ago I retired, and I'm still getting accustomed to not micromanaging or even treating everyone as if they're not sailors, if that makes sense.
It does, man, and I wanted to bring it up because I think it hits your ego, and that's okay. But we have a decision to make. I think once that happens, and it's like, am I doing this to satiate my ego and validate myself as a man and a person that's important by making myself feel important, or can I grow and restrain and recognize that what it is, and then also discern, wait, is this a moment where I need to micromanage?
Right.
But I think it's important to know when it's like, this is a you problem, right?
Right.
Like, I went through it. I felt terrible. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do, man? People are coming to me and giving me that validation, and I wouldn't, but that was my ego messing with me. But I think we have to grow and mature and get past it. And Mike said it, I said it. We'll all get past that huge transition from the Navy, and you having so much responsibility as a senior chief and looked up to by so many people, and being the elder in the room, and you're coming to a new environment where you're a skilled professional, but you know, we all still got a lot to learn. But all I'll say is we've all been through it, and struggle. You might have to struggle a little bit, but I'm sure we'll get to the other side. Got to grow. If not, we're gonna be self-employed.
I think part of
Not
it
business
for,
owners.
for me specifically is I can do it way faster and it be done,
Yeah.
you know, and that is, or I PTSD of knowing, hey, I know I do it this way because I've been through it a million times.
Yep.
Just do it this way and it'll be okay.
All right. If can I take this one, Mike?
Go
It's
ahead, go
Super
ahead.
important. This one's been a fun.
But it's
this
been one of my biggest lessons personally as well.
Yeah.
It's changed
So-
my life. So I told you guys about Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, how do I get out of an employee mentality? If you guys remember the 4 quadrants. So Rich Dad said, hey, there's Robert Kiyosaki. There's 4 quadrants. There's employees, people that work for a W-2. Then there's self-employed people. Who are self-employed people? Loan officers, real estate agents, somebody who owns, some business. But we want to seek to get to the bottom 2 quadrants, the bottom 2 categories, which is passive investor and business owner. So when I was going through like, hey, no one can do it better than me. That's the quintessential business owner's problem. That's why so many mom and pop businesses stay
Fail.
mom and pop businesses. Nobody can do that plumbing better than me. No one can do the bookkeeping better than me. No one can sell it. No one can collect. This guy's an idiot. I don't have time to train him. I'm going to do it. But then you're going to remain in that category as a self-employed person and never transcend into a business owner or a passive investor. So for me, like I needed to see that diagram. Like, oh, we have to stop doing that to get here. And I think about it all the time, and I observe it all the time, particularly when you see people running small businesses, and you're like, the guy is a super talented tradesman, but just can't relinquish the trust, training, and accountability of somebody else to transcend. So that's what I go to help me get over it.
I had to for multiple companies because we started them from scratch. And when we started these companies, Eric and I handled a lot of everything, right? Like the initial Facebook, Instagram, the initial marketing plans, the initial slogans, logos, mottos, freaking like the amount of things that we did to launch the real estate firm and the title company. At a certain point in each of those evolutions, you can no longer do all that shit. It's impossible. So I had to, the marketing for this, you do that now. Oh, the marketing for that, you do that now. The forms, instead of Mike typing them, he can just tell the admin staff how to do them, right? Like I had to learn all that because in the Navy, you got a crew of 10, 2 of them might be solid, and those are the people doing all the work. In business, you can't let it be that way, or you're gonna fail.
Did you find also, and this is what I found, I used to think I was the greatest loan officer in the world, but I was terrible at some stuff. Like, so what I learned is that even though I wanted to keep that stuff close, and it's that fine balance of, do I trust this other person to do these tasks? But what we found at Veterans United is like, dude, loan officers are terrible at certain things, and we need to hire somebody to do it way better than them. So maybe on my best day, maybe I have more knowledge to do it, but when you're burning through the day with all these little taskers and pop-up phone calls, text messages, and things that you have to do, you're going to do that job kind of half-assed. So it's great to find somebody who's great at it and is going to fill it, do it professionally, do it 100% every time. That's their only job, and that's another like fallacy of thinking that we can do everything.
Yep.
Like maybe I could on my best day do it better.
Yeah, no, I think the best decision that Eric and I ever made was bringing in owners and partners that had the skill sets needed, the managerial abilities, the training abilities. Like if you look at Edwin, Edgar, and Andy, who we brought in later on, and how the company shifted after that.
Well, I would imagine, I was just thinking of myself being an agent at Iron Valley, and it would be great to look at the 5 of you and say, all right, this is an Eric problem. I'm going to bring this problem to Eric. Because I don't think Mike wants to hear about this one, or I saw him go through the certain thing. But it would be nice to have different personalities with different business models, with different responsibilities, still owners.
But you can take nuggets from all of them.
Like there's things that my people aren't going to bring to me. They're just not, but they're going to bring it to somebody else, and vice versa. Like I'm not going to her. This is an Aaron problem. But isn't it great that you have, like you said, diversity or variety?
Absolutely.
And it might be mostly like a personality thing. Like, hey, I got a family problem at home. I'm going to bring this one to Edwin, because for whatever reason, I feel connected to him. And this is a more emotional problem. Or no, this is I'm getting sued and I need to dig in.
That was another huge part of the expansion. Like Eric and I can only field so many calls in a day.
Yeah.
You can only put out so many fires in a day before eventually nothing's getting done, because that's all you're doing is putting out fires. So now that you have a managing operating partner at each location, an admin at each location, and we moved Lori from being an admin to being the director of operations, and then there's a lead admin, and we have a training coordinator. So we just started structuring a real company. That's what I'll call it.
And giving agents what they need, which is support. That's really what people need. And we find a lot of times, at least in our business at Veterans United, like, what am I really doing here? I'm just kind of an advocate. Like, you already had the right answer, but you just needed a little FaceTime with somebody to know that you're on the right track, give you a little bit of confidence, and also know that you're in it with somebody, because it can feel super alone.
Oh yeah,
in real estate.
And like with us and with Veterans United, that's the thing I've noticed too. Since these relationships started, we're constantly trying to get better. We're not satisfied, and there's always changes coming down the pipeline, and they're filling us in with, hey, this is new. We've heard your voices. Here's the newest thing. Here we go.
That's great.
So that is something that I like to see you know, some lenders are like, I'm just a lender, and then that's it. Like, it's done.
Yeah.
That's all you get. A, B, C, done. It's like, no, here's some technology. Here, communicate with our lenders. Here, this is the process.
Here's some marketing. Here's some leads.
Yeah, like
Well, it's bringing value, and you know, I mean, just speaking to Veterans United, I've been there for 10 years, and why did I come there? They were a little beat up at the time. They weren't what they are now, but they were guys that were like my age that were. They said, look, we're going to hire you. We're not going to give you any goals. We like what the business that you've been doing. Don't commit fraud. We'll leave you alone. And I mean, that was kind of that was their pitch. I was like, okay,
fucking great.
I mean, I'm not committing fraud, but like it's a lot of trust to give us. But they were doing something different. And 10 years ago, it was hard to see because it was like still a little rickety. It still had some hair on it. But it was when I was going to Mike at Union Mortgage and like, hey, Mike, I know we vibe. We like each other. We answer each other's phone calls. My interest rates are great. That's about it. That's about all I have to offer
Right.
you. And it's like, this is a shitty sales pitch going out to the public and saying, we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
what can we do to actually complement the agents and what they're doing? And the hardest thing is lead capturing. And Veterans United was kind of the answer to that. I was like, I hated marketing. And the amphitheater is one way that we made that really easy. Like,
Right.
dude, we'll just
That was great.
make one
That
deal.
was
And
great.
we're gonna be working through other people's Facebook shots, like tagging themselves at
Yep.
Veterans United Home Loans Amphitheater. But
For years to come, right? That just got renewed?
yeah, I just renewed it for 4 more years. which is it's a vote of confidence also because one of the cool things about VU, they see things. I should say I see things a lot the way that they see them, and it's like, all right, we had a couple of great years. Make sure you stocked away. This is not a new norm. So they're able and willing to go through a large drought if they have to. And when I was up for renewal earlier this year, we're looking at a downward trajectory on margins and profitability for the entire year. So my boss said, "Hey, do you really want to do it?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll get through this little rough patch." But I was a little worried. I'm like, they may not want to stroke this check because if I leave, they still got to pay it. It's still coming
Right.
on my ass,
Yeah.
but it's their name that's on it. Though I structured it, so it was a great vote of confidence for me that they were willing to take that. It's a big price tag.
Yeah, absolutely.
It shows that they're fit for the future. Anyway,
Well, talking about the future, we always ask everybody this, and I'm curious to hear your answer. The next 5 years, what does like your peak life look like?
so that's a good question, and like not to sound cliche, but a lot of times the fun part is when you're building and you set some goals and you're reaching them. That's the fun part, and then when you get there, it's kind of like, well, cool. so I am in a spot where we live below our means for a long time. You guys know I built a nice house, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like, okay, man, here kids are, my older 2 kids are out of the house. Veterans United's jamming. I'm developing neighborhoods. I'm buying businesses, and I am going through that period where I'm like, okay, I'm succeeding, like things are going well, but I need to find like a challenge. So the next 5 years for me is going to figure out, as you guys know, I got a little one with Down syndrome, is like where are we going to be when she's an adult? And I don't know if that's going to be here or if we're going to need to move.
Good point.
So the next 5 years for me is maintaining and doing what we've been doing for the last 5 years, with the option to maybe do something else in 10 years, or like pseudo retire, or go somewhere that's good for my daughter. But we have a choice. It's like, do I want to grow Veterans United 3x from what it is now? I'm like, I don't think so. I want to win the war, and winning the war, I think, is making sure I got happy people that are fed and that they're not getting burnt out, and making sure we're not creating an environment of turnover. I think a really important thing, it's one thing to recruit, it's one thing to attract talent and retain talent. So my goal is to, retain talent and attract new talent if they're a good fit. But Yeah, I don't know, man. I reached my goals a little bit earlier than I thought.
Oh no,
So it is well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool on paper. Like, and I'm being dead serious. Like, I'm very satisfied, but I'm not finding as much fulfillment because I don't really know, exactly what I want in the next 5 or 6 years. I do know that my kids' college is paid for. I got a nice house. I'm secure. We're positioned very well, and I'm surrounded by great people. So a part of me says you should go golfing like twice a week.
Yeah.
And the other part of me is like, you're unsettled. You're never going to do that. So you need to go find something that's going to really challenge you. With that challenge, though, comes a lot of risk and
time.
time. And is it going to make me happy? Because I take great pleasure in knowing, like, almost every day I come to work, I'm like happy to be there. Like, I surround myself with people I like. I love being here. I love coming to events with you guys.
I was pulling up for this, and I was like, I fucking love what I
Yeah,
do.
I'm at
man.
work.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
Like this isn't work. We're shooting a podcast.
Most realtors aren't working.
Eric's flying out to
Most
Cabo in the morning.
Yeah, they're,
Like-
they're still getting ready for the facade.
No,
shit.
most realtors started Thanksgiving already. It's Wednesday before
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. The reality is that most realtors have planned and they're either going out of town or they're just not doing anything.
Well, not us. We have a whole class of people that are calling their sphere all day today.
Nice.
And we're working on Friday,
Yeah, we have meetings on Friday. Yeah.
right? And I'm sure this weekend we're all at some point doing the work.
We might-
Shit,
we
God,
might
this
have-
video's got to get uploaded. It's
We
gotta
might
get
have
chopped.
signups for Sunday.
Well, I think you got to ask yourself too. Like, all right,
right.
what are we working for though? Like, do you guys ask yourself
Well,
that?
absolutely. We bring the kids up, and every time we conversate, your daughter gets brought up, and I pointed that out. It's like, man, she hit you hard because
Well, she's a purpose. She's like we were talking to my other daughter in college. Like when you're figuring out your major, it is super important to have like I don't want to be corny and say a purpose-driven life, but we have to have a purpose.
yes,
And she's like, "What's your purpose?" And I was like, "Well, first and foremost, I'm a husband and a father, and I'm a businessman, and that wears different hats, different relationships, and what you're going to do. But we have to find that purpose to really be driven to do things. And for a lot of time, it was like I just need to make a certain amount of money or have a certain amount of investments to reach certain goals to feel a certain amount of comfort. And once you're there, it's like, okay, it's no fun. Like just chilling out and doing nothing. There's no purpose in that. But yeah, having a comfortable life for our daughter and knowing that she's gonna have a life of dignity, a life of purpose for herself. That isn't just my wife and I feeding her and taking care of her at home. We want her to like get a job or do something.
yeah.
So we're just trying to think of that for the future. So
And you have a very nice house that you took us on your boat and rode by it. Beautiful.
wait, do you want to come inside of it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Next time we'll come up and
No, the last time you actually had gave me an invite, but I couldn't go that night. That was actually the night I think we had a Christmas party or something. I forgot what it was.
Well, I went.
You went. I couldn't
at
go
some
that day.
point. I went to his house.
That
He's
was-
been at my house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was last Veterans
Yeah.
Day.
Oh, that's when it was.
Because we were
That's
just
right.
about to move. We had just.
right.
It was
we
still
have-
under construction.
That's right.
It was
right.
almost
I think we were moving in like
And the
3
event's
days
over
later.
there.
It was the event. And
Ballyhoo's.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Ballyhoo's, right down the road. I mean, but
Nice. So I haven't seen
You
the
know,
finished product.
well, speaking of that,
I have to have you.
I'd like to just thank you while we're on here for supporting our Veterans Day event again.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
We collectively raised over $15,000, so
That's amazing.
it's another successful night, and we're going to keep doing it every year. So last thing is, whoever's doing an interview, we asked the person that we brought on, do you have any questions for any one of us that you would like to shotgun us real quick?
I have a comment, and then I'll have a question. My comment is, I mean, I think we started the interview by saying, or podcast, that we have a lot in common. I think it's super cool that all of us in this room, served, ended up here, or working in real estate and serving a large military community. I think that's fantastic, and I think it's super unique to this area. People are like, "Hey, Veterans Day," it's been a great thing for me because I'm a veteran, check the block with my degree and all the other things I'm doing in real estate. It's a perfect marriage. But I couldn't do this in Columbus, Ohio, or I couldn't do this in Nebraska, or really anywhere else. So I think we're really, really lucky that we're able to keep to those very important roots that we all have with the military and still feel somewhat close to it. Like if we would have come back to the places that we came from, the military would have been something that you did, you know, oh yeah, I was a sailor. It was really cool and I miss it. I don't really feel like I've left the Navy completely because I'm surrounded by it with so many veterans. And again, not really feeling like I'm at work all the time. I feel like I'm just a part of a community, and I think it's very cool. Not to say anybody that served is some hero, but just being a part of that military community is super important, and I love to see you guys doing it, and I love to see a brokerage that I think complements Veterans United very well, and that's why we found so much success together. So we have that personal connection, but I think we need to look a little bit deeper culturally in our roots, and really why is it that we're working the way that we do. And you said, should I have a question? Or if I had a question. Well, I mean, what was your biggest struggle, and what made you, Eric and Mike, give up some of your ownership? Like, we talk about that decision of, you know, filling voids of weakness and strengths, kind of spreading out talent, but giving up equity is a big thing.
Yeah. You want to go first?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I've been doing a lot of reading on my own, right? And going back, not really understanding why, but it's really more to optimize my time to become more efficient in life. Me and him were, once everything happened, and it was just me and Mike, we were banging our heads on the table. Like we couldn't do it all. Mm-hmm. So at some point, to be able to scale the way we wanted to, and to move without being here 24/7, the only way to do that is to bring in somebody else.
Why couldn't you just hire them?
We could have hired. You can hire. The problem with hiring an employee, they will never give their soul for the same scalability, the same
buy-in.
You won't get the buy-in. You won't get the same vision out of an employee that you will somebody that owns part of the product.
Absolutely. Also, you know, you're sitting next to two men that easily could have just left me and went and opened a firm.
32% gone.
So
Just like that.
You know what I'm saying? So that's
irreplaceable.
I would never say that because I
No,
was.
I'm talking about work, not personality.
But it was like these people were vested in the company. They were performing. They were taking the guidance provided and implementing it, and you could see leadership qualities. They both were running successful teams. Andy was impacting other agents without even being asked to. So then it just was like, well, I wonder what they would do if they had some skin in the game.
Right.
And also, if we expand the ownership team and they do buy in, that means that we would be 2.5 times more efficient. You go from 2 to 5. Mm-hmm. So to me, it just made sense. And I was just coming off of like a rigorous 3-month homework period, like a legal battle and compiling and professionally arguing via email. Like, kicking people out of companies is one of the most absurd, ridiculously difficult things to do on the planet. And a lot of my growth happened in that time, where it was just like, wow, this is, you know, keeping the company up to snuff and keeping the morale up. Like, these guys were already helping us do that when it was bad. So we said, well, let's make an offer.
Well, I mean, and ultimately, like, I could say, like, the family has expanded, right? We all have different ways that we connect. And I know, like, me and Edwin talk all the time. His wife loves my wife and vice versa. Our kids are everything that goes together.
Yep.
It just works in harmony, ultimately. So it's kind of an easy decision if you actually enjoy, like, being around people.
Right.
Yeah.
And people that have that same drive, that same work ethic, that same background. You know, nobody in our group's really a silver spoon or a a trust fund baby, if you will. Like, we all have made our own way. And obviously that resonates with me for all the reasons that all of you know. I don't think I could be in business with somebody who just hasn't had some struggle or
Some grit.
like
We hope that our kids have that.
absolutely, man.
There's another.
Yeah, we got a whole episode on that.
We talk about all of that, Aaron.
Oh,
But
man.
Yeah, that's the
and
biggest concern.
we just knew to go where we wanted to go, we had to make a move, man. Like, we were growing still, and then once we made the move, it just skyrocketed.
So even before that point, if we take this conversation to before that, right? We all kind of like already were heavily invested in each other's lives outside of real estate.
Absolutely, we were
Right?
playing basketball
We played
every
basketball
weekend. We
together.
were having
hung
dinner
out,
together as owners.
holidays, we the transition from team lead to owner was, as far as work life, didn't change much because I enjoyed already hanging out. Like,
It was organic.
it was, that's the best way. It was very organic because they were part of our lives. Whether if we were owners or not, we can't tell the future. But one thing I know is we will all maintain friendships because we had that.
So I have a question comment for you. One circumstance of operating in business that I love to talk about is the speed of trust and the absence of trust and how detrimental it can be. So I know you guys have had some struggles with the absence of trust and how much of a handicap and a problem that can be. Can you guys speak to your ability to operate at like speaking dolphin because you trust each other? Like, you don't even have to say it and how much further you can go without having to reveal somebody's intent, without trying to figure out if Mike's trying to undermine you in some way. So have you guys considered that your relationship largely is due to a trust factor and how you operate quickly with that speed of trust?
I think that it goes hand in hand with our ability to produce, right? The production and the ability to execute things gives that trust. So they trusted us to become owners because we were already it was an easy kind of decision for us three specifically because we've earned that trust by being here, by putting out the training, by growing. We were Iron Valley Strong before Iron Valley Strong was a thing.
Well, to a little bit deeper, also, it's like, let me see the numbers, right? Let's get into these meetings. What's this 5-year plan look like?
Which we happily provided,
Yeah, so it was those answers, and the transparency was there, and also it goes into the relationship where we're old enough to know when somebody's being fake or being malicious or trying to hide their hand in some way, that we didn't feel that. We know these guys' vision or whatever was set out already before we kind of joined, and it's like, this is what we have in mind. We're going to scale. This is what needs to be done. In the beginning, this is what the numbers look like. They weren't selling us any like big dreams either. It's going to be work, just like anything else.
Yeah.
It's that trail. While you're on the trail, it's rough. But after you look back at it, once we reach our peak or whatever, you look back and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that was fun.
So all that being said, like, it's working. You guys have talented leadership with ownership, but you guys are recruiting like madmen. And I know that the splits are good here, but what is it that you see with that old model? That old, I don't want to name any names. When I came in, they all look the same, like these tired,
You could
beat
say
up.
it. Yeah,
well,
'cause
I don't want to name any names, but there's brokerages that have been around forever. They just seem so tired. They seem so unfulfilling. They seem so absent of bringing anybody in.
Yeah,
just
it's
cold.
I'll speak to this first real quick because it's almost 7 years ago now when I first joined. That's how I felt when I got to that first place. I'm looking around. I was like, I don't fit in here.
Yeah.
It was just old, stale. Just what are they doing here?
Yeah.
And that comes down to my due diligence. I should have shopped around a little bit more. But even after I made the move, the next place was similar to this. You just hang your license. Here's our transaction fee or whatever. But there's really nothing else. You know, they're not up with the times. They're not. It's not always about the money, because believe me, people don't come here.
The money will come when you're serving.
We have present leadership, and we have a combination of the best split structures, but also all the software and all the lead system connections and information that any agent could need, coupled with elite sales training now. It's just a recipe for success. And I think people see that and they want to come try to be successful too. But there are agents that come here that leave because they realize, like, this is a culture of production. We sell houses. This isn't a place you come to just shoot the shit and hang out all day.
So talk for 5 minutes.
Well, and to go on
Good
that,
adds up.
it comes down to culture, right?
Absolutely.
Companies can't outrun their culture. Veterans United made a great culture. Everybody that I've personally met at Veterans United has been warm, welcoming, sometimes blunt, sometimes intense, right? But
Who are you talking about?
I'm not talking about you, Aaron, at all. But it comes down to the culture. Yeah. Success breeds success. If we're doing it and we actually pour into you and want you to be successful, you could do it with that same hard work and that same mindset. And that's the culture we've kind of cultivated here.
And this you know, the word gets out.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you know, when me and Edwin kind of came on board, there was that recruiting push. We really had to sell ourselves. Nobody knew who we were.
Right.
So if we can say some of those other brokerages are outdated, and we can further say that they might be like generationally outdated, and you guys are generationally about the same age, right? Within 15 years. I read a book by Robert Greene recently. He's the guy that wrote like the Umpteen Laws of Power.
48
Laws of Power. He wrote
21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
I don't think he wrote. Did he write that one?
Robert Greene, yeah.
It was Laws of Human Nature that I read, and there was a chapter about generational awareness. And I thought it was so striking that, like, a lot of the things that I think I came up with is my ideas. That was old Aaron reading, and I've come to this conclusion. I'm informed that this is what I think. And what he argued and what I started to observe is like, okay, I look at my parents and I'm like, that's an outdated way of looking at something. Oh my God, look at my kids. Go ahead. And the book made me very well aware that many of my ideals have nothing to do with Aaron. It's generational. So that being said, you guys all being of the same generation and looking at a failed generational model of real estate, how are you guys going to look to the future, being aware of generational ideas that you are beholden to?
Well,
And as you age and as you grow,
It's funny you say that. We just had a meeting yesterday.
so you have to be forward thinking. When the Matterport camera first came out, nobody was doing 3D pictures. And I told Mike, we have 6 months. Then everybody else will have it. And no shit.
Yep.
6 months later, every photography company, Zillow came out with 360 camera. So we sold the camera and moved on. Now, I think moving towards the future is going to be AI. That technology is growing by the minute. And I think we could utilize it on multiple levels of our businesses, whether it be lending, real estate, or anything really. But it's always just constantly be forward thinking and evolving with the modern time.
so evolving with the modern time would be of your generation.
It could be any generation.
But do you think,
Well, think about it this way. Like you said, it's already been created. Speaking to the AI, that's like your assistant. It's just a new assistant. It's still the same. I mean, you just hired that person to do something for you for 100%.
all right, so we're talking about technology. I'm with you. I think I'm talking more about like how you're going to handle people.
Oh.
So easy example is like, let's call it generational empathy.
Right.
Yep.
So the ideas that I have as a guy born in 76, I look at my parents and I look at my kids, and I'm like, they got it wrong. They're on their phones too much, and they're just outdated people. They're behind on technology, the way they see things socially. They're outdated, but I get it. And you guys get it because we're the same generation, right?
Yes.
But as we age, and this is the problem, like, think about it. Like, young people look at us and they're like, this guy's crazy. He's old.
Oh, if your kids don't look at you like that now,
how are you
already-
going to keep that's what I'm talking about. Like, how are you going to keep up with that? So you got a good thing going. Many of the people are like generationally appropriate, but you're going to be hiring people that are 10 years old right now in 15 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's-
So how are you, like, have you guys thought about how you're going to manage that problem, which is going to be a problem because
It
you're
will
going
be
to
a
look,
problem.
we're all going to look down on that generation in some way. Hopefully we can find some good in it. Like, wow, they're really good at this AI thing, or, you know, whatever it might be. But have you guys considered a generational gap in how, like, your worldview in the years to come?
For us, and here, I'll speak for me. That's the reason I have my daughter being licensed now.
Yeah.
She just turned 21, and 10 years from now, my plan is to Taina take over the reins for me. She's
She's going to be relevant.
she's going to be relevant at that time. We all have children here, right? We all those are the next ones. Like, I look at John and Marie's son.
Like,
I look at
I
Jax.
look at my son
Like,
as
those are
the next
Jax-
fucking king. You know what I mean?
Jax
Like,
and William, which is John and Marine's son. Like, honestly, when I look at them,
they're like the same kid, yo. It's crazy.
I see them. They're at swagged up Adrian. He's 11-year-old. You see these kids.
Apparently
The way
all
merch.
now, right?
They're merch. Yeah.
They're more confident.
Yeah.
They're more confident. They're more technologically savvy. They talk shit to us. I know that we all say, like, oh, this generation, they're pussies that are weak or whatever, but I also see a generation of kids that make us all look stupid.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter is 15 and a half. She's never not taken an AP class in high school. She's going to graduate a year early. I didn't help her do that. In fact, me and her mother went through a pretty ugly divorce, and she's been killing it the whole time. Is that not strength? Is that not perseverance? Is that not grit? She went and scheduled her own permitting test the day she was able to. She had a calendar. Dad, I need to go DMV. Like, these kids are different. So for me personally, I don't fear that my children will crush life. I think they're going to do absolutely fine. My son comes to me and says, I need something for 20 or 40 bucks. Where's the bucket? Like, that's
Like
what my
the
son
dog
does
shit.
for money-making activities. He picks up dog shit. So do your fucking job as a parent and don't fuck us all. Like, that's really what it is. Because the screen time's not bad as long as it's not the only thing they're doing. Video games aren't bad as long as it's not the only thing they're doing. We have to teach them balance. Okay, you need to get out of your room and take that walk.
Well,
Okay,
those
you're
are
going
the
to...
kids you have control over. Like, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you
Yeah.
on that.
Well, it's to his point that ideally, we have so many children between us, we would want to keep the growth at that point in the family if possible.
Yeah.
Correct.
Or at least we could use them to close that gap.
And closing that gap means you're constantly hiring, hopefully, younger people.
Yeah,
And some older people that can deal with that generation, too.
Yeah.
So I love it. I mean, hiring,
I think that's honestly why Lori works so well here as a director of operations. She's about our age, but she has 2 full-grown adult children that she's raised, So she has the perspective of today's generation
Yeah.
and ours. And it's kind of that mesh. So how do you continue to identify those employees moving forward is a great question.
For me, in the last 5 or 6 years, things have moved pretty quick, and I'm like, thank God I hired younger employees that are willing to tell me what's up. That are like, hey man, you're messing up. I'm like, what? No, you're not. I'm way more successful than you. And they're like, hold on.
Yeah, let's stop it.
And I lean into them, and I feel like when I'm around a lot of people my age that are outside of real estate, are we talking too long?
Nope.
Okay, I was reading the room. Like,
Just looking up, huh?
all right. But I would be around some of my older cohorts that stayed in the Navy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man, they seem like they're 30 years older than me. So I try to look at the younger people, not in every action, but it's really important to be generationally aware, like I think you guys are. I think we're saying the same thing. But it is, Like, how can we draw strength from the youth on things that just weren't of our generation that we can still tap into, recognize as a strength, and deploy? Very important, because I think so many people are closed off with that generational bias that we need to be open generationally to those different ideals.
No, you're right, and that's where a lot of those people failed. They didn't want to change, and
Yeah, I would say we all do a very good job of being open-minded.
Yeah.
Eric came to us with the AI thing. I'm like, what's it sound like? Skeptical. Then you listen to it, and it's like, oh, that could work. And then somebody comes in and does a presentation and shows appointment booked, appointment booked, appointment booked. You're like, okay, we got to try this shit.
That's how you step on the competition.
But
What's great about AI though, right, is it is continuously learning. Mm-hmm. So, like with a camera, yes, somebody else could have the same thing. You could, if you hire an AI 6 months from now, our AI is more developed than yours ever will be.
Because it
at
learned
the
from
same
you.
time.
It was able to
learns so
serve you
fast.
better.
and it was learning sooner, so it's developed longer.
Right.
So
And that goes to what you're talking about. That will be probably the future that a lot of these people are going to be using, right? And but the person to person thing, that's very important also, because until that goes away in our industry, we got to be involved with our personnel, our agents, or whatever. Like, we got to be involved. We got to be in tune with the times.
even that example, it goes to your question: how do we stay ahead of it or stay with the times? Is we keep doing what we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. We took that meeting yesterday with a team lead and one of his agents, and both of them are younger than us, not considerably, but they are younger. They're at different levels in the business than we are, but that doesn't mean that we can't sit down and learn from them. And we all chose to sit down and learn from them.
That's great.
So if
So
we
important.
continue doing that, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
So, because I mean, honestly, everything I learned from Instagram to Facebook to all the stuff we do to a podcast, all the stuff, like I'm always learning from somebody else, or he's self-learning and then teaching us all. But we all do that. We all do certain things, and then we show each other how to do
I
it.
have no social media game whatsoever.
That's fine, but you're doing well. You have your own everything in your office, right?
I mean,
and you have the numbers to back it.
Yeah, but it's never been my style to, like, here's Aaron.
Yeah.
It's
So
just not my style.
that's that generational gap.
That's that generational
Yeah.
gap.
So
But it works. Like, I was listening to Ed Milet, and he had
Imagine that.
Well, yeah, Mikey turned me on to it. It's been great. But I was listening to him interview some woman. She's beautiful and she's a big influencer, and she made the comment. She's like, "Look, I'm not going to deal with anybody that doesn't have like an online presence, because you need like that credibility and a followership. And if you have followers and you have good content, you have validation. Therefore, you're a relevant person today." And then I had that accounting. I'm like, wait, am I relevant? Do I need to like start posting things? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it.
No, well, we
doing
just
it.
met the
Michael Burt.
Michael Burt, who just started doing social media, right? But he already has a big following.
Yeah.
He just
But
recently just started doing the
I'm sure he would tell you he's realized the benefit of it.
yeah.
I think,
But he's got a different business model.
and Aaron, for
Correct,
you,
and that's the
I
other
think,
thing.
What is relevant? Do you want to be relevant to the country, to be an influencer, or do you want to be relevant to the people that you're already?
I mean, I feel like we're very relevant at Veterans United. We're the
Right.
top producing
But-
branch.
Yeah, but the individual.
But Aaron G, what do you like?
I don't want to be
as-
out. I don't.
Then you're
I
fine.
find no joy doing that.
Right,
Like
then you're
I like
You-
God. I got to post a picture once or
You'll
twice
be
a year.
surprised
No,
on how many
but-
people you do influence and how many people do know who you are.
Yeah.
But so I'll say this. Like, I recognize that may be the case, and I like being elusive a little bit. Like, I don't want to open my, I'll show you a picture of my family, and
I mean, that's how I felt about you. Like we went. It's funny, a mutual misunderstanding. That could have been easily solved, even through social media. It could have been like a message, and it took me 6-8 months. I walked in your office, and you're sitting there drinking a glass of scotch, asking me, "Why the hell are you in my office?" But it was funny because I was like, "Oh," and then once we found out it was a mutual thing,
yeah,
it went away.
yeah.
It
Right.
was just a misunderstanding,
But if you don't have that conversation, you know, he's going to keep
never
throwing
know.
those shots.
Right, but
Those
you
little
never know.
passive aggressive shots.
But it's great.
They weren't passive. They were just aggressive.
Yeah.
They were just aggressive.
There was nothing passive about that.
Got it. I haven't
shook
got
his
that side of Eric yet.
Eric has a better accounting of these things than I do.
That's just Aaron in his natural habitat. Okay.
Yeah, it was just like you walked into the lion's den and here he was staring at you like.
What was that? When the lion's hungry, he eats.
But you know, I've always looked up to you. Now, granted, you did my loans before that disagreement, before that misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And something as simple as that, that's where communication does come into key in business, friendships, development, networking. Because if we never had that conversation that day, or if I'd never met Wendy,
Yeah,
there's
we
no reason-
never we would have went our separate ways, and
we would have went our separate ways, and there would have been no conversation moving forward.
yeah. So are you saying
Because of-
social media could have solved that problem?
It could have.
But
a lot
when
of
I
it-
look at
lot-
social media, I look at it and I'm like, this person, this author is only putting out there what
What you want them
what
to
they
do.
want to see.
Right.
And
But you could almost feel with a lot of people, you were mentioning yesterday, the underlying feeling that they're having by what they're posting.
Oh, I can tell you what somebody's going through, bro.
Yeah.
When you look at some posts and you're like, they're about to get divorced.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
100%.
No, dead ass.
You put
Or
a-
they're killing it, or they're in their fucking glow up, or they're
Right.
they're in turmoil, or
What
they're
social
sad,
media-
or
what
you
social
can see
media
it, bro.
has
You can see it.
done, I think, on a broad scale, is that it made it faster for us to connect. Mm-hmm. You couldn't
Connect and understand.
connect and understand with somebody that could be in a whole different state, California, Ohio, Florida.
Here's the
You
cool.
could have had that connection and build an actual relationship
Yeah.
faster there than
Man, I don't think
anything
I've
else.
built a relationship in my life on social media.
That's because you've never done it.
I don't know that I want
Correct.
to. Like I'm
That's
Yeah.
fine. You don't have to.
But there
when-
is something that's missing there as far as even business, I would say. It is missing. But you don't, it's not something you want, then you're not going to
Yeah.
do it. It's kind of pointless. But to the social media side also, yes, that's a generational thing. That's also a point of contact. That's also, like even now, if I call somebody younger than me, right, they're not going to answer. But if I text them,
right.
it goes to the same thing.
And the first place they're looking you up at,
they're
Facebook,
gonna check.
Instagram. You know,
What's this
I do.
person
I mean, I
about?
still do that and try to get a feeling.
But yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
But Aaron,
Well, it was a
we-
pleasure.
We
No,
appreciate
thank
you
you,
coming
Aaron.
on here.
I
for
appreciate
sure.
you guys always and admire what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I think you're super relevant and a model for other people to look at. I love seeing you break the model. In many ways, I feel like Veterans United has broken old models, and you guys are doing very much the same thing.
Well, we're about to do it some more.
Love
It's,
it.
it's gonna get a little. It's
let's
gonna get a little
just
Big
crazy.
news coming soon.
We can work
It's gonna get a
together.
little crazy.
24.
Nice.
Well, by the time this is published, it'll be out, man. So you know,
That's true.
if you're unhappy at your non-realtor firm, just come on over to Iron Valley Real Estate Prestige. We'd love to have you. Edgar will be your principal broker.
Well, I got one more question for you, Mike.
buttons.
I heard an interesting data point, and it's that, a big problem with NAR is that they own many of the MLSs around the country.
Not
Yes.
here.
And
It was like
in
530.
here, we're not. Who owns our MLS?
It's privately owned.
By who?
Rain is privately owned.
By whom?
By who? That's what we need to know.
Maybe that's your next
Probably a
challenge.
shell corporation or some shit.
But no, but don't you think, isn't that a curious question, especially today?
That's always been my
I
question.
mean, I don't think it's
But-
curious. You could easily make your own private MLS and leave them behind.
But you guys are beholden to the current MLS, and we have.
Well, you're
big
not.
legal
You can do
problems.
business outside of the MLS.
You could, but I would say 99.9% of your agents, let's say 100% of your agents, use the current MLS, and it's privately owned. We don't know who owns it. Don't you think we should know who that is?
Right.
I mean, I'm asking. I'm not on the real estate side, but I'm thinking if I were you guys, like if we're one of 10 MLSs that aren't owned by the National Association of Realtors and something's about to blow up, either that's really valuable or not.
Right
And
now,
something's
right now
gonna
it's in our
change.
favor.
Okay, so who's going to find that favor? Who is controlling that thing? I think it's an important
It
question.
doesn't. Well, it's not the Realtor Association, so it doesn't matter. NAR explodes. That impacts Hurrah, not Rain MLS.
Okay.
You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like that would
As
impact
long as
your
it's not owned by them, you're good.
correct.
Okay.
That's where we're at right now. So I'm happy that it's privately owned.
So
to
a
be honest.
non-realtor
Yeah.
firm, Iron Valley Real Estate Prestige, it's in our favor if that thing does blow up.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's being ahead of those times, like we just spoke about, because what if things do go south? We also need an exit plan, right?
Well, I guess back to the person that owns it, there would be a lot of power that person would have if all these things come true.
100%.
Yes. Yes.
I would want to know who it is.
Well, what power do they have? They don't have any power.
I mean, they fine us every other week, so they have a little bit of power.
Well, that's just because you're a member. Like
Right.
you could just as
You could start your own MLS.
100%. Like
Well, if the NAR owned, thousands of MLSs or hundreds, whatever it is, and they're going to be shut down in some way, and I don't know all the implications, but that was a lot of power taken from them, and that's important to a lot of different places.
Well, and to
but
go
not
beyond-
us, thankfully. That's my point.
And to go
Right?
beyond
So
and not the conspiracy theories. Who is really behind it? Because if NAR owns 538 MLSs, who's going to be that vacuum? Because the business still has to be done.
yeah.
So who's
So there's going to be
Zillow.
opportunity in those markets
100%.
where now I can make an MLS.
Right.
Whereas here you would have to lobby to get rain out of the picture. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like you would have to get
Every other firm.
all of these agents and all of these firms to disassociate with rain and create your own. Whereas if NAR just has a complete meltdown and loses everything and no longer is authorized to own an MLS, those marketplaces can now have the next person that owns rain, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But none of them can dictate commission, and that's really what the discussion is about. We are of free trade and commerce in these United States, correct? So if you're above the age of 18 and you agree to pay 6%, that is what it is. Nobody can set a commission. This is sales. It's an agreed upon number before a house ever even hits the market. What people are under fire for is misinforming the consumer as to blame the buyer's agency fee as to why you have to have this commission fee. So if I'm a listing agent and I say, well, the standard's 6%, but we have to list for 8 because the buyer side, we got to pay them more, or they're just not going to show the house, and then you turn around and you keep the difference, that's unethical, right? So like people not studying or don't know the details, me as a principal broker, I'm fucking nerding out. I'm reading this shit every day. I'm giving the company updates, like inquiring with corporate about updates. And so now we're just putting layers in place to be prepared for anything, because we don't know what the outcome will be, but it's not going to deter me at this moment in time from being a realtor, being involved in a realtor association, lobbying to protect those commissions. But not all agents are educated in that facet of the business, right? If you look at 9,200 agents in Hampton Roads, there's only 5,000 realtors. That means half of our marketplace isn't a realtor anyways. So this is really one of the places in the country that will be the least impacted by everything that's going on.
That's awesome.
We already operate with a buyer broker agreement that has a percentage disclosed on it. We already operate with a standard listing agreement, exclusive right to sell, that has a full disclosure to the seller where the commissions are going and how they're being dispersed. So people here locally are super concerned about something that may not ever even impact them at all. But I'll digress. I'm just some poor orphan boy from Dayton, Ohio, Learned how to read, though.
Yeah.
But that's it, man. Thanks for coming in. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks,
you.
boys.